Lynn organized the Nova Scotia Committee to aid American war objectors. Recently, war resistors helped by the Quakers met to share their experiences with the public. The CBC's Natalie Dobbin attended their talk at Dalhousie University's Multi-Faith Centre, but beforehand, she headed over to Smitty's restaurant for dinner and a reunion.
I'm very well.
I don't even know when 1470 Seymour Street first became Quaker.
Probably about 69 or so, because I lived at Carteret. Said it's probably been 40 years since we've actually been, face to face talking about things. Yes,
41 or 42 years. Yeah. I'm Dick Cotterill from Truro. I deserted from the United States Marine Corps in 1972 after serving 3 years, and during that 3 years becoming opposed to the war in Vietnam and the American involvement.
Oh, I marched to the Battle of New Orleans at the end of the early British war. Young land started growing, young blood started flowing, but I ain't marching anymore. For I killed my share of engines.
I did go over to Cornell to the anti-war office, and that's where I got information about Canada. And I got to the point where I thought, well, I don't know if I want to leave the country and go live in Canada, but I need to get out of here for a while. And one of the names and addresses that was in the information that I got was Quaker House, Seymour Street in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Richard Lind, and the phone number. A friend of mine March break was coming up at Cornell University. He was planning to go to Maine. He said he'd give me a drive up. So we came and knocked on the door at 1470 Seymour Street, and with Richard's guidance, within a week, I had found a job and had all my paperwork in order. Richard had schooled me on the questions and answers and what I was going to be asked, and given me a map of where to return to the United States and where to drive up the border and where to come back, up into Canada.
It's always the old to lead us to the wars. It's always the young to fall. Now look at all we've won with the saber and the gun. Tell me, is it worth it all?
And the feeling, not only then, but years later, whenever you go back to the United States and come back to Canada, that feeling when you cross the border, which is already mentioned, is just incredible. To feel like you're home.
How did you stay connected with the Quaker community here in Halifax?
Well, when I lived at Quaker House, I attended Quaker meeting on Sundays, and the more I attended, the more I fell in love with the people and the Quaker philosophy. And then over the years, I became what we call a convinced Quaker, and I did join. So I'm a member now of the Halifax monthly meeting.
What were the values that stood out to you?
Pacifism and anti-war, and more than that, people who lived what they believed and lived what they said they believed in their day-to-day life.
I wasn't a Quaker. My grandmother always said that if she had a chance to choose, she would have chosen to be a Quaker, but that is as close as I got. Until I ran out of all sorts of options of getting out of the draft and decided to go into Washington, D.C., to the Washington, D.C. Friends meeting in there to get information on being a conscientious objector or going to Canada. I'm Richard Lind. Back in 1968, when I immigrated to Canada from Virginia, I came as a draft dodger, and having arrived here with support from Quakers and other Americans who had come before me, I wanted to offer the same help to other people, and the Quakers in Halifax were great support for that. Great trepidation. Phoned this woman whose name I got in the newspaper called Muriel Duckworth. Did I dare meet with her about this? But she and Jack, and many of you probably know her, were very welcoming, very supportive, and they thought perhaps indeed the Halifax Friends would like to meet with me, and perhaps together we could do more than just provide booklets to people. Maybe we could provide a place to meet or even housing. I think friends wrestled with it. For some, I believe that it was, yes, this is what we should do. Set up a coordination, a center, perhaps even have, Quaker meeting in the same house that could be used to shelter American war objectors. But I really do sense that in good friends tradition, that the meeting wrestled with that until it was a unanimous feeling that this was the direction to move ahead.
He's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with
I'm Margot Overington from East Chesapeake.
He's all of 31 and he's only
My story, well, I was one of 150 women who was in the United States Army on a trial basis. And what I'm going to share this evening is the change in my heart that happened in those 4 weeks from being on the inside and seeing what the Army was really about.
And he knows he always will kill you for me, my friend, and me.
It was a large Army base. There were tens of thousands of new lieutenants getting ready to be shipped overseas. This was their last stop before going over to Vietnam. And they only could date female officers because you couldn't date enlisted people, so it was about 1,000 to 1. Only time in my life. It was wonderful in that regard. So anyway, I was thinking, if I was going to kill somebody, I would want to know exactly why I was going to do this. I would want to look this person in the eye and then kill them. So every night I dated a new lieutenant, and I asked the question, given that you are heading to Vietnam, how do you justify killing people who live in that country? I got responses like this. I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't know what else to do. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to have to leave the country. This was my first aha moment with the Army. None of my very eligible dates had thought through what they were about to do. I've been a member of Halifax meeting since 1972, and I first met Quakers in Toronto, which is where I moved to when I first came to Canada. And I've been a friend ever since.
And what stood out to you at that time about the Quaker lifestyle?
Well, I think because of my American background, what struck me at first was the protest against the war. And so I would join the protest. And then I went to Quaker meeting, and I was home.
Those are the voices of Vietnam War-era resistors who were helped by Quakers in Halifax, and our thanks to the CBC's Natalie Dobbin for that piece. We heard earlier that traffic lights at Brunswick and Duke are not working at all, and there's a lot of fog in the Halifax area, especially over the harbour, so remember to reduce your speed and turn your lights on. Also, just see the Englishtown Ferry is out of service until further